My name is Mattie Thompson, and I live in Carthage, and I've lived in Carthage all of my life. I recently retired from the Carthage Independent School District as personnel manager after approximately 30 years of working with the district. My family lives in Carthage. I was born and grew up in Carthage, went to school in Carthage, and just kind of settled down in Carthage. If you were to ask me why I chose Carthage, I would say I really didn't have a choice, seeing as I was born here. Although I did leave Carthage for about 1 year that I spent in Chicago, Illinois, when I was 19 years old. But being from the South, it was kind of hard for me to adjust to the fast pace and to the coldness of the city of Chicago. So I came back home in 1954 and commenced to have my family and to raise my children in a small town setting where I felt that it was much safer and where I felt that we would be more comfortable to rear a family. I attended schools that were segregated because at the time when I was in school myself, we were a segregated school. And then after I got my education, came back and worked in the school system, we were still in a segregated situation until the year 1970, when we totally integrated with the other school across on the other side of town. There are some advantages and some disadvantages to the segregation. One thing that I have observed as an advantage of segregation is the fact that there seemed to have been more unity among the black race when we were segregated. And it appears that the educators had more interest in our children, in their welfare, in their educational goals, and they were more concerned about the children getting their lesson. And then I would venture to say one of the most important factors or important advantages of segregation was the fact that the teachers made it their business to know the parents. The parents and the teachers had a bond. There was a bond between them. That was during the time when the teachers still went to the homes to talk to the parents, and the parents came to the school and felt comfortable in coming to the school. They didn't feel that they were out of place. They didn't feel that they shouldn't be there, and they certainly weren't taught to use a terminology that they couldn't understand, therefore being made to feel inferior to the educational system. So to me that was an advantage of segregation. And even though we knew that we were not equal, although we were separate, that we did not have all of the materials and all of the advantages that were offered on the other side of the track, yet with our children, we did what you might call, we took the least of the most and made the best of it. And even from that era, from the time when we were segregated, we have lawyers, we have doctors, we have children and young people, they're adults now, and they went on to higher heights, they went on to get an education and did real well in the business world, despite the disadvantages of segregation. Which the disadvantages of segregation, of course, would be that we did not have the appropriate materials to work with, nor did we have the quantity of materials that we needed. And as far as the textbooks were concerned, we always got the leftovers, and of course, we didn't have the equipment that we needed. And in the band department, if you were to talk to the band director, he would be able to tell you how that he had to be the band instrument repairman because there was never any money to repair our instruments. So some advantages of our being segregated, again I would say, would be the fact that we learned how to be creative, we learned how to unite and pull together, and we learned how to be concerned about one another. Some disadvantages of it, as I said, would be that we didn't have enough of anything to go around. Even in our lunchroom, all areas of our school were, in a disadvantaged situation. But the advantages, again, we were together. And the advantages of integration. I'm not not sure, sometimes when I think about it, I'm not really sure about the advantages, except maybe for the fact that all of those things that we were deprived of, those things are available to us now. But even with those things being available, it appears that our children have developed a lack of interest in getting an education because of the fact that they are not allowed certain social advantages. They're not given the same consideration in the classroom. So one of the greatest advantages of it is that even though the minority student may not be given that one-on-one and that personal contact that is so needed sometimes in the educational process, yet they are exposed to a lot of different things that segregation could not and did not provide for them. And it is my consensus that if I sit in a classroom with a group of people, regardless of what race, nationality, or creed they are, and there is some teaching going on, that I'm going to learn something too. Whether it is the instructor's intent for me to learn or not, I'm going to learn. So the advantage and the disadvantage of integration is that our students seem to have lost their zeal for competitiveness, and I think that it's due to the fact that very seldom are they allowed to win out over the other competitors. So after a certain length of time and an individual is not achieving and they're not being successful and somebody else is getting all of the attention, somebody else getting all of the awards, it just stands to reason that they're going to grow a little bit discouraged and give up and not even try or put forth a greater effort. And therefore, about 90% of our students, our black students, do not even strive or put forth their greatest effort to learn. And I think that is due to them becoming discouraged because of so much competition. Now, a disadvantage is that, as I said, that I think that they've just kind of given up and they've kind of developed the attitude, well, I tried. I'm not going to win it anyway. I'm not going to get it anyway. And then we do yet have that old ugly word of prejudice. Prejudice is still very much alive, and it is yet being practiced in the classroom as well as on a social level and all other levels. So we have to think about that as a disadvantage when we think about integration. Advantage, thank God for the affirmative action that they're trying to phase out right now. But the advantage is that they cannot teach theirs without teaching ours. And if we could only somehow or other instill into our students, into our children, that they need to pay more attention and they need to put forth greater effort to take advantage of what segregation is offering them and not go in the classroom and goof off and play around so much. As I tell young people all of the time, that your white counterpart may goof off in class, may play around, but when they finish high school, they got an uncle that's a banker that's going to give them a job. They have an uncle, or they have a cousin, or they have a brother that is already well established in a business or in the business world, and they're going to bring them in and give them every opportunity that is needed for them to succeed. But somehow or other, it seems impossible for us to drill that and instill that in our young people's minds, that they don't need to waste the time and goof around in the classroom. A prospective or positive aspects of living and working across the tracks is that it's always good to grow and to bloom where you are. I think that it is a greater achievement, a greater reward to be successful from across the tracks than it would be if you grew up in a different culture. It's just something about the other side of town that people expect those people to succeed. They expect them to be doctors and lawyers, and they expect them to be researchers and chemists and all of those high-tech people. But it's always amazing And it's always so wonderful to me for just a mediocre person from across the track in a black neighborhood that did not have all of the advantages that the others had to come forth and excel and to have the success that people only expect from the higher echelon. It's an honor to live among your own people and be considered or be head and shoulders above the mediocre or head and shoulders above the average. And I think that every young person should not look at their environment. They should look at their future. They should look at their possibilities. They should look at the positive aspects of living, because a man or a woman, they're not to be judged by the neighborhood they live in, but they are to be judged by what they're doing positively with their life, how they are striving, how they are. Some of the positive aspects of living, shall we say, across the tracks, or let's just say living in our own communities or living with our own people. There are a lot of positive things that we as black people, a lot of mores and a lot of customs that we have established down through the years, and I feel that our children for the most part are missing out on those things. Take for instance our churches. Once a year, every church in our community always had what we call a homecoming. And that homecoming was celebrated with a week of revival, and then it was climaxed, or it started out rather, on a Sunday with dinner on the ground, and everybody brought dinner. They spread it out, and you could go from box to box, from person to person, and eat and just fellowship and get full and enjoy yourself. And then all that following week would be a time of revival, a time of church services. And then of course there was always, I remember when we would have things at school, and we would call them school programs. And during that time when I was in school, and during the time when my children were little and going to school, like in the 1950s and the 1960s, early 60s, we never worried about transportation, because transportation was always provided. The school bus, after we finally got one, the school bus would run and would pick up all the children and the parents that wanted to come to the school program. So we had no problems with getting the parents to participate. Whereas now, we don't get 80% of our parents to come out, even to parent night or to any other function at the school, because some of them live so far out, they don't have a way to get back in, and therefore they're just not that interested in getting out trying to conjure up or come up with a ride back into town. So when we were across the track and everything was centered over there, then we had more time to fellowship together with certain things. Our ball games, and I can remember when there would be more people at the game, that I tell you, it would just look like a convention. There would be so many people there. And we missed that. And that was some positive things that our children are now missing out on. And that positive thing being that they are unable now to see the participation of their black parents, of our black parents, our black aunts and uncles and friends and whatever, coming together to a celebration, or even coming together just for a school program and a school closing program. And some of those things that we did that we have abolished and that integration did away with. We always had a school closing program, and all of the parents would come just to see their child, or just to hear their child do their speech, or just to see their child participate on the school closing program. And then of course we would always have picnics. 19th of June was always celebrated in a big way. Watermelon and red soda water seemed to have been the thing of the day with the 19th of June, on which that was a day that we celebrated our deliverance or our freedom from slavery. And nobody worked on that day. Everybody wanted to go and have a picnic, or wanted to go and do something, have some sort of an activity to celebrate our freedom or our liberty. And of course, as we said, there's always that warm feeling of being among friends, being in the neighborhood, being next door to someone that you know was really concerned about you, that really cared about you, and being able to be with your own kind, being able to relate, and being able to laugh, and being able to, to have that freedom, to know that you were among friends, and whatever you did, that you were going to be understood. That's the word I'm looking for. You're going to be understood, and it's good to be understood, and and you didn't have to force any different conduct or any different style of living or any different way of talking. And that brings me up to a little thing that a professor asked one time. I like to think about there being two different ways of communication. One is a business communication, and then the culture communication. In business, we talk one way, and in culture, we talk another way. So the question was asked, which is best, to be understood or to be right? So when we are in our own neighborhood, we don't think about using the correct English. We know we don't have to. All we need to know is that we're understood. If we use ain't or whatever, we are yet understood. We don't have to be so self-conscious. We don't have to be on trial. We're not on trial. So therefore, that brings a freedom to an individual's mind that put them at ease because they're among their own kind. And we don't have to put on any airs. We don't have to put on any whatever. So there are still some positive aspects of living across the track. And those positive aspects would be that I don't think that everybody living across the track, I don't think that they're selling drugs. I don't think that they don't care about what happened to their children. Because I know and I feel that they do care. And there are some that are doing quite well. And there are some that want to do even better, and some who are striving to do better. And we do have young people from across the track, and older people too, who are working in high-tech jobs and who do have their children's best interests at heart and at mind, and they are attending college and they are doing well. Some of them even in high school, and I've had an opportunity to observe them, to teach them, and to be in the classroom with them. And there are some who are yet being taught to have respect, regardless of what neighborhood they live in. They're being taught to have a fear of God. They're being taught to appreciate who they are and to be grateful for where they came from. And I think that those things, that if we could get those things passed on to our children, that they would not maybe have such inferiority complexes when they look at their background, when they look at their surroundings, and just to know that they can rise above their environment. If that environment is not what you want it to be, then you got to know that you have the opportunity, and there is the means, there is the way that you can come out of that environment and rise above it and go forth and be successful and achieve your goals. That brings me to something else. May not be what you really want me to say, but I think that every individual, especially the young people, should be taught to set goals for themselves. And the goal has nothing to do with the environment. Wherever you are, whatever your condition, you may be living in a shack. You may not even have a decent chair to sit on, but you should have some goals in life to say that this is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. And this is where I'm going to aim myself. And I'm going to take the necessary steps after setting goals. And I find that as being one of the greatest faults with our children. That's not a good word, but they do not have goals for themselves. And a person without a goal is a person that does not have the incentive to achieve. So they need to be taught to have goals, set goals for themselves, and then take the necessary steps to reach those goals. Set goals that are sensible, goals that are attainable, and have long-range goals and short-range goals. And then set out to reach those goals by steps and by degrees. I asked a young man that was 15 years old a few weeks back, what did he expect to be doing when he was 18 years old? And if you ask the average young person that, they will not be able to tell you. He told me that he expected to be on a job and to be making some money. And that was really discouraging. That I told him, I said, you know what? If you really had a goal for your life, you would have told me that. I expect to have graduated from high school and be enrolled in college and well on my way to becoming what I want to be. But his goal was just to make money. Not to become a doctor, not to become a lawyer, not to become a CPA, not to become anybody professional, not even to further his education, but to just get a job. So the goal setting is something, I kind of went off on a tangent there with that goal setting, but that just happens to be a kind of a sensitive place with me, a sensitive spot with me. And the thing that I always try to teach the children, teach the young people is to set goals for yourself. No. You know what? We ask the question in job interviews, what do you expect to be doing 10 years from now? And according to the answer that is given, will let that interviewer know what kind of employee that they are employing. And most people don't really know that, but if you don't have a goal for yourself, then you're not going to make a very good employee, because the employer wants to know that you're going to achieve, you're going to strive to do better, you're going to strive to make to better yourself, to gain more knowledge, gain more prestige, gain promotions and all this on the job. But nevertheless, that's just one of my pet things, is this goal setting thing. Because most of our young people do not have goals. They've had no one to help them to set goals. Even little children of other colors, you ask them in first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, what do you want to be? They tell you then, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a nurse, I want to be a teacher. They already know, they already have some idea. Although their little ideas may change 100 times before they really settle down to one career. But it's one thing for sure, that if you will examine or do a survey of every successful person, that person will tell you that they had to have a goal before they could succeed. Because we got to know where we want to go before we can even embark upon the journey to get there. And if we don't know where we're going, then we don't know where to start. Even I myself, I had to have a goal for myself. And I set a goal for myself about 35 years ago. I set a goal for myself. It was kind of late in life, but I set that goal. And I worked for that goal. And it took me a long time to achieve it, but I never gave up on it. And that goal was to get a bachelor's degree. And in December of '94, I got that bachelor's degree. And I know the importance of setting goals and then staying on course, staying on task to reach your goals. And I like to think of myself as doing it, and I didn't change environments. I didn't change culture. I used everything that was at my disposal to help me to get where I wanted to go. And I love my background. I love my culture. I wouldn't trade it for nobody else's. I don't want to be a part of anybody else's. I just want to be a part of what God made me a part of.